You know, in our world today, pretty much every move we make leaves some kind of digital trace. A text, a login, a GPS location, it all creates a trail of digital fingerprints. But here's the thing, those fingerprints are unbelievably fragile. So how do investigators actually uncover these clues without accidentally wiping them away? Well, let's dive in.
Okay, so picture this. You're the first investigator on the scene, and you're looking at this desk. You've got a laptop, a smartphone, a desktop PC, a bunch of USB drives. You just know the key to solving this case is in there somewhere. But, and this is a big but, there's a huge problem.
You can't just power everything on and start clicking around. I mean, the simple act of booting up a computer can actually overwrite the most crucial piece of data. So what's the plan when the very evidence you need is so fragile it could just vanish?
And that right there, that's the fundamental challenge of digital forensics. This isn't like a footprint in the mud that you can make a nice solid plaster cast of. A digital clue can be wiped out in an instant by a power outage, a wrong command, or even by the suspect trying to cover their tracks remotely. And that's exactly why investigators can't just wing it.
The solution is a super rigorous, standardized process. It's a set of rules that make sure every single action is careful, documented, and can be defended in a court of law. It's all broken down into 5 critical phases. First, you have identification, finding the potential evidence. Then, collection, grabbing that data. Third is examination, then analysis of what you found. And finally, presentation, explaining it all in a way that makes sense.
The whole point of this entire process is to guarantee one thing, that the evidence holds up from the crime scene all the way to the courtroom. For this explainer, we're really going to zoom in on those first 2 steps, identification and collection, because honestly, they are the most high-stakes part of the whole shebang.
So before we can even think about collecting anything, we have to back up and ask a really basic question. What are we even looking for?
I mean, what actually counts as evidence in the digital world?
Now, the key word in this whole definition is reliable. It's not just any data. It has to be data you can trust, data that can either prove or disprove a theory about what happened. It could be anything, an email, a location log from a phone, or even a tiny fragment of a file that someone thought they deleted.
All right, let's jump into the first phase and see how this all starts to build. This is where the pressure is on right from the very beginning, and it all falls on the shoulders of the first person to arrive on the scene.
This person's job is to see a laptop or a phone and recognize it's not just a piece of hardware, it's a potential treasure chest of clues. They need to lock down the area and flag every single device, from a gaming console to a smartwatch that might have something on it. But this is also where things can go wrong, and fast.
I mean, take this real-world example. In a murder trial, a detective at the crime scene, maybe thinking they were getting a head start, decided to try and unlock the suspect's phone. They tried a pin, then another one.
And just like that, after too many failed attempts, the phone either locked itself permanently or even wiped all of its data for security. The defense, of course, argued that the police themselves destroyed critical evidence, and that right there is the perfect example of why this process is so non-negotiable.
Okay, so the evidence has been identified. Now for the really technical part. How do you safely gather all that data without changing a single bit? Well, the very first decision an investigator has to make is whether a system is live, meaning it's powered on, or dead, meaning it's off. A live computer is tricky because it holds all this incredibly volatile data in its RAM, its short-term memory. We're talking passwords, network connections, running programs. If you pull the plug, all of that is gone forever. A dead system is more stable, but just turning it on can also cause problems.
And the data, it's never just in one convenient place. It's scattered all over the place. It can be on hard drives, phones, those little memory cards, and yeah, even gaming consoles. An investigator has to be ready for anything.
Now, here's maybe the most important rule in all of digital forensics. Investigators never work on the original evidence, ever. The very first thing they do is create a perfect bit-for-bit copy. It's called a forensic image. It's an exact clone. The original drive then gets sealed up in an evidence bag, and all the analysis is done on that copy.
And sometimes, getting that perfect copy is a real challenge. If a phone is smashed up or password protected, they might actually have to physically take it apart and use special hardware to pull the data directly off the memory chips inside. It's some seriously detailed work. So they've got their copy, but how do they prove in court, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it's a perfect copy? How do they show it hasn't been tampered with? Well, this is where 2 key principles come into play. First, you've got the chain of custody. Think of it like a diary for the piece of evidence. It's a detailed log that tracks every single person who touches it, what they did, and exactly when they did it. Any break in that chain, any gap in the diary, can get the evidence thrown right out of court.
And second, you have the cryptographic hash. This is pure mathematical magic. A hash is basically a unique digital fingerprint for any piece of data. Investigators create a hash for the original evidence, and then they create one for their copy. If those two fingerprints match perfectly, it's mathematical proof that the copy is identical. If even a single bit is different, the fingerprints will be completely different. There's no faking it.
So let's pull all this together, because it really highlights why this whole strict process is a literal race against time. A race that's basically dictated by the laws of physics.
This right here is the order of volatility, and it rules everything. Just look at the top of this chart. Data in the system's cache lasts for nanoseconds, gone in a blink. Meanwhile, stuff at the bottom, like data on an SSD, can last for decades. This is why investigators have to collect evidence in a very specific order, from the most fragile stuff to the most permanent.
And here's where it gets really fascinating. Imagine a suspect's hard drive is totally encrypted. It's unreadable junk without a key. But that key, the thing you need to unlock everything, might be sitting temporarily in the computer's RAM, but only while the computer is still turned on. And that is the classic dilemma. If you just pull the plug to preserve the hard drive, that key in the RAM disappears, and you might never access that data. But if you try to capture the RAM while the system's running, you risk changing something else. So what do? That is the constant high-stakes calculation that's at the very heart of digital forensics.